Hello friends, and welcome back to another very interesting tutorial for beginners. In this tutorial I'm going to model this very interesting scene, so you can take a screenshot of these, and I have these in the image reference added on my image editor as well. So you already know the basics of Blender. I created a separated tutorial, multiple separated tutorial how you can model and learn Blender. The link in the description, and if you want you can check out my paid courses as well, available on my website. You can check the link in the description. So to start, we will add a cube, which is the best opportunity for creating this sort of house. And the next thing is that we can go to viewport overlays, and you can turn on these wires. This allows you to see how many wires you have added in onto your object. And of course, if you want, you can go to Matcap or Studio and change if you setting that you prefer, but I like to set it to flat. So that's perfect. Let's select it and we enter tab. As soon as I enter tab, I will see this pie menu. So you can change it. You can have access to that by going to preferences, go to key map, and enable tab for pie menu. Then make sure to save your preferences. And this is a lot useful, because in case if you want to switch in texture paint, object, forth and back release, instead of just going here and switch to those, you have access by just pressing tab. Let's go to edit mode. We press 3 for face, and we move it in x-axis a little bit. So it's good to see. We press T, we add a cube. It's good to see the final result of these. So we press Alt, Control Alt and 0 to lock the camera to view. And then let's select the camera from here. We go to output and turn on format, and let's set it to Full HD, I believe. Yeah, HD TV 1080, 9020 and 1080p. Then we press N, go to view, and camera to view. We can align it perfectly. Select the object and press numpad period. Now the object is in focus. Something around this should be fine. And now it allows us to see what is our final result. So we can look at here, and let's press N again and turn it off, so that we can touch the camera. If it's rotate, so it will go out of the view. That's perfect. And of course, for lock and unlock, you can use these. Now you can adjust it, and now if you click on it back, it will unlock it. So that's good. Or you can use 0 to lock and unlock. So what else can we add to this cube? Well, since we will keep these low poly, so we can press Ctrl and R and select this edge. Now we can grab it by G and move it up like so. That's perfect. Let's select this edge, Shift and S, cursor to selected. So now the 3D cursor will move to this position. We want to assign another cube. We enter tab and we scale it down. Let's scale it in this way in the axis, and we want to rotate it. Let's look at from front orthographic. Now it's a lot easier to see what is what. Let's unlike it and make it just a little bit, zoom it back. So if you want to select it back, just hover your mouse on this object and press L. Now let's rotate it. We scale it down a little bit. You can see if you just zoom closer, yeah, that's fine. And now we can use S 2 times, but doesn't seems to work. So let's select this top face and we slightly move it down. Okay, that's perfect. Now I like to go to object mode again, and I like to select these vertices, and I moved my 3D cursor by pressing Shift S and choose cursor to selected. So this pie menu by Shift S is a lot helpful. Add another cube, go to edit, scale it down, and you can see the shape of these is very interesting. So we select these two vertices, and in the transform pivot point, make sure to set it to bounding box S and Y. Great. Now let's move it up a little bit. Now let's scale it in this way. You can press Shift and Z to switch between solid mode and wireframe mode really fast. And we grab this object again. Let's work on it a little bit more. And let's see if we can manipulate it more. Grab this bottom vertices and move it slightly in. So now let's make it, these is very straight. Let's make it some crooked style and some style to it. And this will make our object more interesting. Let's add a few loop cuts. And now we press 2 and we select these edges and we try to make them crooked. You can of course play around with the vertices, faces and edges to make it really nice. But I think this is style. Your object so will look like more stylized. So try don't leave any edges straight, except a few edges. So we make these, we adjust this edge and then we'll leave one edge or two edge straight so that it continue actually. You can see only these a few changes make this object very interesting than what we had before. Now let's rotate it. So we set the transform pivot to 3D cursor and we press Shift D and then rotate it to the other side. Now let's set it to bounding box instead. You see, I just moved this edge just a bit towards z-axis and a little bit towards right. You can press Shift and Z in case if you want to block out the z-axis, and now it doesn't move in z-axis except X and Y. I mean, it moves in X and Y except the z-axis. So Shift, you can block out the axis you want. So you can use Edge, which help you a lot. That's great. Let's select these two, Shift and D, and move them back. Now let's think about the style of our house. We can enter tab, add a loop cut. We can make it and give that some more interesting style just in y-axis. Make it thicker or thinner. So that's up to you. Or we can just leave it as it is. But I like to make it a little bit thicker. Give that some depth in y-axis. Interesting. So later at this place we need a small window. So let's complete, let's think a little bit. Let's complete this area. We add a floor. Press Shift and S, cursor to world origin. Now select the object. Shift and X, selection to cursor. So we move it down a little bit. And the door will start from here. Now let's enter tab. We select this front edge. Now it's time for the stairs. Let's add a cube and we scale it down. And then let's scale it in x-axis and then y-axis. Look at from side and we move it down. Move it up first. And we can press Shift D. And once again, to complete this. And now we can select these faces and move them down. S, Z, and 0. S, Z, and 0. Make them flat. That's perfect. And then anytime we can change these. Let's go in edit mode and we move it up a little bit. Now it's better. Let's move 3D cursor here at this space and then set it to 3D cursor. Select all of these except this one, S, Z, and 0. And now all of these will be aligned with this space. And I like to delete these unnecessary faces. That's perfect. Now let's go to the next part, which can be these door. Select the base part of this building, of this house, and let's think a little bit. We can use a cylinder in this case. Yes, cylinder is much better, and we will use a low poly version of that by 12, or let's go higher, 16 or 20. Let's set it to 20. Scale it down, RX 90. Y in Y-axis is better to use. And then enter tab. First, let's grab this area and we can delete this area even. We move it down and we scale it in Y-axis a little bit. Then we grab this, move it down and scale in Y-axis again. That's about this interesting door. Now let's hold down Alt and delete all these spaces, move it back in X-axis, and then press E for extrude in X-axis. Oh, what you can see what we have got. Let's press this space and press F to fill that area. You can see that the backside is filled. Then we can use Boolean modifier to make a hole on this part. Select the building or the house. We go to modifier and we use Boolean, which is located in the generate. Select this eyedropper and choose this as the target. Now if we just select it, we go to these object properties, we go to display as and set it to wire. So we don't see actually this Boolean has made its job, so let's change it to faster instead of exact. Then we can manipulate it. Select the back face. Make it more, give it some more depth. Oh, it's great. Select the house and press Ctrl A to apply this Boolean. Now we have got the hole. So what can we do with this one? So let's create a frame. So for frame, we press I for instead of face. And let's set it to solid again to see it here. And right click and bridge the faces. So for this area we can delete it and we select these two, or first let's select the 3D cursor, hold down shift and right click, and I'll select this edge. Set the transform pivot point to 3D cursor S, Z and 0. Press 1 for the vertices. Move it back a little bit. So this is the frame that we have got. Perfect. Let's select these, and we want to use this cutted part. You can extrude it. So let's press P and separate that part. And I would like to work on this. So let's first set the origin point to the geometry, to its center. Now it will scale based on its center. I think we can change it based on the frame. So enter tab, press K, this is one cut, K once again, and another cut. And enter. Control B. And E for extrude, and move it back. Now it's much better, the position of that. Select this top face, and instead of extrude, I like to move it. And then let's select these back faces and move it in x-axis inside. That's perfect. Now, the next thing, let's think a little bit. We can create this sort of circle window, and that is good to use a 24 vertex for circle, 90 degrees in y-axis, which is perfect for this, for such situation. And you can see we have got it kind of not really round circle, but we can change it. To something like Bezier shape. Make it a little bit bigger, rotate it. Enter tab, F for face, and I for insert a face, and just move it slightly. E for extrude. Let's extrude in this way. Yeah, that's perfect. Of course, we can make it a little bit bigger. Now let's see what else can we add. Let's go with the tiles. We use plain, and then we want to use something called for solidify to give us some thickness. It is good to move the origin point to the back side. So let's grab these edge and move it. Move the 3D cursor first, and then in object mode right click and set origin to 3D cursor. Now it will be a scale or rotate based on this position. Look at from top orthographic and we align it perfectly. We try to align it perfectly. Move it up a little bit. In edit mode I like to add to these 1 or 2 loop cut. I like to add some more actually crooked style to this area as well. Then we'll look at from top and we press Shift and D, and I try to duplicate it. And we move this one down so it looks like that this one is underneath it. And we keep continue, make it crooked style, rotate, and then press L, and then take another copy. You can make it, move it a little bit up. Let's grab everything, make those a little bit scale it in x-axis so that we can have more place to work with. G, Shift D, Shift and D, and with one more time, and then just play around with these parts. Now that we are done, we can go to modifiers and add the solidify. Play around with the thickness of this. You can play around with the even thickness, and sometimes it helps you to make the edges a bit better. Now we can tweak a few parts. Let's set the transformation point to 3D cursor once again, and now let's change the position of 3D cursor, Shift S, and cursor to selected. It should be cursor to selected. Then we can press R. Oh, not this area. Let's go to object mode and Shift S, cursor to selected. Now because we have the origin point of this object here, so now we can easily rotate it. So the length of this is too high. Let's enter tab and scale them down a little bit, and scale them in x-axis as well. Perfect. Now press Shift and D to duplicate it. Shift and D. We have got this, but we have to manipulate it a little bit more so that it doesn't look too boring. So we can grab each of these and just play around with the setting. Enter tab, we select these, or let's select this area. And look it from a good angle and make it play around with that more. Rotate it, for example. Very nice. Now what we need to do is just move it to other side. So look at from top, or we can just mirror it out. So let's find a good position. We move 3D cursor at this position. We add another modifier. It's called for mirror modifier. And just choose X instead of choose O. You know, we should find some good place. So this will happen sometimes because of the rotation. We can press Ctrl and A and choose apply rotation, and I hope this will solve the issue, which is perfectly fine. And then the next one is that the mirror is searching after its origin point. So now we can choose this one as the target and choose the bigger wood plank as the target, because its origin point is exactly at the center between these two tiles, which is a good target. Now we have everything nicely aligned, but I like to play around with this area. Well, let's apply the mirror modifier. Yeah, we can change it in a different way. Okay, that's perfect. If you want, you can spend more time. And the chimney, let's work on it because we forget it, and it's a good place. We add a cube, move it down a little bit, and let's select this area, move it in x-axis, scale it. Let's set it to bounding marks, scale it down, I4 instead of face, and then if extrude, and let's move it down. Let's press Alt and S and face along normal delete these faces and E for extrude and scale and E for extrude. Then press F to fill that area. A very interesting chimney we have created. Scale it in this way. And I like to select these face at the bottom and move it inside. And of course we can add a few more loop cuts, 2 or 3. Let's assign a loop cut or a bevel and press Alt and E, face along normal. Move it inside a little bit. Or let's just press Ctrl Z. We added this loop cut. Press Ctrl Y again, and I like to add one segment. And now I like to select these and move it slightly inside, so we can see these edges. Then we can press GG 2 times to slide it. Ctrl B to bevel that area. To bevel a vertex, you can press Ctrl Shift and B to bevel that vertex. Only on those places which I'm seeing it in the camera angle. I don't like to spend more time, except those places that I will see in my final result. Yes, if I want to rotate the camera, even see it backside, so I can spend more time, but it's perfectly fine. And now we can go and turn off these, and you will see how nice it become. This area we can actually change it, slide it to this area instead. So that it looks more natural. Now it looks like more like a chimney instead of just leaving it in a straight line. We maybe can add that more. So we press 2 for H. And let's extrude it once again. Now it's fine. You can see those small details will definitely change and affect your object. Now let's see what else can be added. Of course we can add another, I think this is a few bricks, so we can add it by adding a cube, scale it down, and now we enter tab, press 3 for face, we select only these two and press Ctrl I to inverse selection. And let's look at from top orthographic, make it closer to the wall. You can press numpad period in case if you want to zoom, and Let's extrude it down a couple of times and with a few segments and cuts. Of course, we can play around with this area. We can press GG 2 times. Some case to change that faster. GG 2 times. And then we can give this area 1 or 2 segments. And of course, we can select this area and just make a few parts crooked. Oh, that's perfect. And then we can assign a solidify modifier to give this place some thickness so it connects to wall perfectly. Of course, we can scale it and use the same one for this area as well. Shift D and then Shift X, selection to cursor. Rotate it negative 90 degrees. Now let's manipulate a few area, such as here. Make it flat. So the next one is this small, like, window, if you say. For that we can take help of a plane instead, which is easier to work with. Move it out of the box. This is going to be in a triangle shape. Let's add one loop cut and another loop cut as well, or just leave it as it is. And then we press I for insert a face. Control I, E for extrude. Oh, it's too much. It's just a little bit. And I'll just shape it. You can add more loop cut in case if you want to make it a crooked style. Make sure to do it in edit mode, not in object mode, otherwise you might have some problem with selecting the vertices, because in object mode you can't select the vertex which is located in the back side. So that's good to keep in mind. Let's move closer to this area. And now we created this very interesting shape of this window. Let's press 3, hold on Alt, and scale this area. Now move it back. So let's connect it. to the wall, snap it to the wall, and that's about it. Of course we can use these slats, or let's use this one to make the job more interesting. Scale it down. I believe we can rotate it. Let's instead try to rotate it in y-axis. Look at from top of the graphic. Maybe somewhere here. Shift D, we move it to this side as well. Okay, so let's create this interesting pipe. For that we use Bezier. Press V and choose vector for both of these, or let's delete both of these and instead we use one of these draw brush. For example, we move and drag from here and we continue like this, and go to its properties. Let's open up the geometry and play around with the depth. Select it, look at from top and press S and Y and 0. Let's tweak more and we can just grab this area and play with it until we're happy, and we will see the result here. Can move the entire shape of this. Perfectly fine. Let's work a little bit more on this window. Oh, it's fine. I can let's work on this stair. Can give that some more segment. That's great. Let's take a look what we have else. So now it's time for creating these interesting like garden / pretty garden. So that's very simple. It's just a basic cube and we can extrude it up to time. And we can look at from top right graphic. Let's make it just a bit thicker by scaling it. Now it's perfect. Let's select this stair once again. I need to move this area in this way. Now it's a lot better. Let's make this one as well crooked style. Just very slightly touches, it doesn't be too much. Very small touch. So another one we have in this area, Shift and D. Now let's take a copy of these, make it flatter, and look at from front orthographic. Let's select this area. Oh, let's press P to separate that part first, and now we go to edit mode, and we move these. Add another loop cut. Let's move this a little bit up, and this one up again. Then let's select all this part and move it down just a little bit. Now let's press Shift and D, move it down so that we can make it a little bit a straight line. Perfectly fine. If you want to make it more interesting, so just move it so that it sticks out of the bigger wood plank, and this same thing. And of course we can continue adding these. And in this time let's select this one, which is, let's add a loop cut, and then we can press 3 for face and select this area, and we can press E for extrude, P for separate, and select these, and in edit mode just scale it. Let's press N, and with this one let's enter tab. I like to select this vertex, and we press Alt and S to make this area a little bit thicker than what we have, and the rest Alt and S, I like to make them smaller. Perfect. So now let's work on this area. So we will borrow the same slant. Let's press P and by loose parts. Now each of these is separated. Origin to geometry. Let's press Shift and D. And I move this to the side. And you can see it where I placed that. I think it's a good position. Now let's work on it a little bit more. Let's add the floor. So the floor should be, if I just grab these edges, we move through the cursor and we add a plane and we scale it down. I'm going to scale it up. So first of all, let's move its origin point to the bottom, so it can be easier to scale it, and origin to 3D cursor. And now we can start with very the smallest, the shortest, and Shift D once again. Now we can scale it just in X-axis and then X-axis. We can move them closer if you have these. Oh, it's time for a slant. Let's grab one of these and we rotate it 90 degrees in Y-axis. Now let's move it up, scale it down, look at it from this angle. That's perfect. Shift D, take the duplication, let's move it down, and once more Shift D. Enter tab, press P to separate by loose part. What's easier to manipulate into big. We can delete these, or we can fill it with a few like stones, such as the stones of this part. Let's get rid of that for now. Shift D and manipulate it. Let's move this up a little bit. And do the same thing with this one. Shift and D. Enter tab. Control S to save your project. Don't lose it. I think we can change this one. Let's get rid of these. And then we just need to move it in Z axis. So about these very interesting foliage or the grasses, we can use a plane, and we can subdivide this plane a few times, say 2 times, and now it's time to shape it. Let's grab these faces and scale it down. Of course we can make with this area more to give that a very interesting shape. Let's select these faces, move it down, and Control 1 to give that one level of subdivision. Turn it off to see. And turn it on again. Now let's make it a little bit brown so we can select these edges. Shade out the smooth, and we can add a solidify modifier to give or add a little bit of thickness to it. And of course, if the solidify modifier we place it before subdivision, so we get this very smooth effect. The only thing that we need is to replace the origin point in the very beginning of this. Let's move it, and we press R, Shift R, RR 2 times, and just continue adding these interesting leaves. And now let's add another thing such as a sphere, and we can use a low poly sphere, and we can use it to actually fill a few area here a couple of times. And now we can, with the help of these, we can fill the empty areas. So now we can stick these lips to it, and then we can later add a green color to that. Shift D, make this smaller. RR 2 times. Let's move origin point of these, like branch if you say, to the 3D cursor. And now I like to move 3D cursor here and select it, object to cursor. Now we can press RR 2 times, and create sort of thing like this. Shifty RR 2 time, Shifty and Shifty RR once more. Let's join this area. Right click and join to the left. If you wonder about this interesting flower, it is made with half of cylinder sphere with 15 and 10 works very good. We can even make it 8, less than that, and then we actually press Shift D, duplicate, we can scale it down, and now we select this one, we move it and delete the half of it, X and delete the faces. Now we want to select each of these edges and if extrude. And then we select these edges and we want to scale them down, as for scale, and this one as well. Now if I just add a solidify modifier in object mode, you will see these very interesting shape have been created. Of course we can select these edges and make those, I'm playing around with those to get very interesting effect. We could have less of these to have less of these blades. Add a solidify modifier before subdivision, and we can give that some depth. Enter tab, we select this area and delete the rest. Add one level of subdivision and it's fine. Let's grab these two, move them, set it to bounding box, and now we have these curve, Shifty, cursor to select it. Let's press Ctrl Z. and the curve is there. Selection to cursor. Let's select these vertex at the very bottom and selection to cursor. Now everything works very good. We can scale it down. Of course, we can add a leaf. For example, this one, make it a bit smaller. Selection to cursor, Shift D and rotate it, and Shift R to repeat the rotation. Now let's right click and convert these to mesh, and we can join them by Ctrl J. Or we can apply each of these solidify modifier, Ctrl J first, and apply, and apply, and then we can join them with Ctrl J. But I recommend to keep it without applying the modifiers, because it allows you to change it whenever you need. So that's how we model this very low poly scene. Let's press 0 to go to camera mode, and we lock it. We try to find a good perspective. Scan the floor, make it round by Ctrl 4. In this case, we can add 4 levels of subdivision. Now let's play around with the camera setting, such as zoom. If I set it to the focal length to lower, you will give this fisheye look, and the main focus should be the house. See what a nice effect we have achieved. So you can play around with it more. For example, if you set it to 10, you will get even more interesting shape. Let's set it to 20 and play around with it. 20 is not bad. That's perfect. Let's set it to 16 so that we can see clearly that fisheye effect that we are searching after. Let's go with this one, because if I set it to 16 or less than that, we will actually see the house a little bit thinner, and that's not what we want. want to make it closer as possible to the reference image. That's perfect. Now let's select everything, and let's just select the floor, and I like to add a base material. Set the roughness to 0.7, and it should be fine. Now select everything and then the floor. Press Ctrl L and link materials. 129 objects we have created, that each of these has the same material. Now if I just go to render and we use our own HDRI, so this is Blender HDRI. So if you have these, you don't have, because I import those manually, so just go with those that you have. And if you want to take a render, you have to use turn on scene light and scene ward, otherwise it won't work. Even if you take a render, you will see black and white because there is no lighting effect to affect your scene. Of course, we can go to shader, and we can actually work with our shader. Let's join this area. We can add ambient occlusion, and you will see how ambient occlusion will affect. You can press and add a color ramp. Let's go to render, and this is how it will affect. Let's play around with this area, make them closer, and want to apply them in occlusion. You know, they were all but the closest parts. And we don't want to see it too dark. We just let it. No, it's before. Let's we can select these two and press M. So here is before. So here is after. And before, you can see the ambient occlusion is removed. So we go back to layout. Let's go to solid mode. And I like to add this cylinder. We make the cylinder really large. And the camera is located right on the front corner of these. So let's I'm trying to find a good location to assign the background. So now if I just take a look at it, we will see in the background we have something to show, which is perfect. that's about it. Let's remove it since we want to use a transparent, or we can use this one as the cover. And if I just go to setting for the camera, we can go to sampling and we can use 200 samples on 100 to take a screenshot or take a render to see the final result of this. And here it says the remaining time is 2 minutes. You can see that we have just added a very solid color to each of these, but let's assign different color variation to each part of these assets. So we press Z and we switch to material preview, and I like to open up another panel, and we set this one to shader editor, press N, and of course we can press 0 to get rid of camera menu or camera angle. We can go to render mode as well, but being in material preview is much better because it allows us to see in real time what is happening. So let's select all the wood slats, whatever is belong to wood, and then we can press J to join them. Okay, so let's find and select, Ctrl J. Let's press H, select the rest of the wood planks. Even this frame door and the door is made out of wood. If I press Alt H, you will unhide whatever we have hidden. Ctrl J to join them, and now all the wood parts is in one single object. Of course, we can select the window and join it, and press H to hide them. Now all these stone part or the concrete, Ctrl J to join them, and this is going to be one object. Ctrl J. There is no much of this, no more. Chimney as well. H for height, H for height. So all the foliage is going to be 1, and this part is 1. This is one object, is going to be metal, and all the foliage, oh, the sphere should be one object. Ctrl J, because I will add separate material to those, and all the leaf is going to be a separate object. So let's grab everything. Oh, turn it off. Grab everything except these nice flowers. And these curves, curvy shape, and Ctrl J. Oh, you have to have a select active object, so select, hold on Shift and select that one, Ctrl J, and now you joined. Press H to hide it. We can join these two, which we can because these are Bezier curve with the help of this, and this one is merged already. So now we press Alt H to unhide everything, and it's time for adding materials. Well, let's go to the material preview and turn on the scene light and scene world, and Control S to save it first. Let's start with wood. We jump here and we assign this new material and we name it to wood, and we just come across this one, and let's grab it and change it to a wood color. Oh, of course we can use this one instead to see its effects. So this one is not changing things, it is just a color, but the main color is coming out of this, and this one is going to be the shadows, the darkest area. Of course we can mix these two. For example, we can use this one as for a bit more darker area, and if I just play around, you will see we can have two parts of it. So you can see the corner and edges, we have these nice dark brown, and for the rest we see that nice effect. So we can mix it. So we set it to 1 and 1. So if it's interesting, otherwise we can just use a little bit of these to just see the ambient occlusion, the points or the faces which is contacting another face or another object. Now let's select, for example, the ceiling, and we create another color for this. Name it ceiling. I think it ceiling. Before adding this ceiling color, let's play around with the setting in the principal BSDF. You can see if I just set it to set the roughness to 0, we will get a very glossy wood, which isn't what we want. Now open up the specular, and we have something called for sheen. You can play around with the sheen and give that a nice color for the sheen. We can't see it until we go to the render mode. In render mode we will see it clear. Okay, that's good. Now let's move to the next one. Control S to save it. And we choose this color. Let's go just a bit towards the white, I believe. And we apply the same to this area or to all the stones. Ceiling. This one is going to be the metal, and for the metal we want to use a dark color, and of course we will play around with the metallic since this is a metal, and we want to give that some more reflection with playing around with the roughness. Because this is a rusted metal, we don't want to make it too dark, so let's leave it as it is. So this area, let's create another one and we name it to brick. Can make it just a bit darker, dark brown. Good. So the next one is this foliage. Let's choose a very interesting grass, and for the background let's use the ceiling and assign it, and now let's remove this one. Shade out to smooth. We can change the color of these. Let's assign a different color. Select the window, select the frame should be wood and this one should be another thing. Let's say click on this plus, assign in new and name it to glass. Let's assign this color. Perfect. Now let's go and play around with the transmission. Let's turn off transmission and just set the roughness to really low, and this make the window reflected. Let's have some more 3D modeling, so we can use this sphere, okay, and Shift D. I like to create these parts, so Shift D and extrude it. If extrude just a little bit. And Ctrl J. Now we can change the look of these to something else. So let's select it and we assign a green color. So let's assign the base to green, and this one should be the ceiling or the stone, which is better. Now we have more variation of this. And another one that I like to add is grass. So we can add a plane, and we can go to edit mode. In edit mode, let's scale it. So this is the simplest way which I'm offering, which I offer. R 90 degrees. Let's take a look at this angle, and let's select these two faces and move them like so. Shift a couple of times. Set origin to geometry. Now we can replace these as the reference. You can see it. So we have these foliage around these areas. Let's hold on, shift and middle mouse and shift this, then move it. Right click, set origin to 3D cursor. And now let's move 3D cursor, and now we see it better. We can scale those. Of course, we can enter tab and we select any of these by L, and we want to set it to 3D cursor and we scale it down. And this way it allows us to scale it based on 3D cursor. So let's keep continue, and I will add more of those. Scale those down. Now it's much better. So let's look at from top orthographic, and R for rotation. Let's set it to bounding box instead, or you can set it to individual origin as well. Okay, so if you want, make it smaller. And now let's move across here, scale it down or scale it up, and then and as I told you, for the render, you can just hit the render button, but I like to work on this green a little bit more since it is not interesting. Of course, we can add more of this variation of these grasses to make it even more interesting. As you see in the image reference, we have some fog in the background. We can create that by the principal volume in Blender and shader. So for creating this nice fog and volumetric effect or light, we can add a cube and assign the volumetric node on to this cube. So open up shader and search for volume or principal volume, and remove the principal BSTF and connect the volume to volume slot. You can play around with the density and color. Now we can add sun, and we can play around with the density and color of that. As you see, I will tweak more my material in order to give a better color. In order to get a better color. We can use other lights like area light to make our scene warmer. You can play around with the rotation of the sun in order to achieve a good result, exact as the image reference. As for the background, I use image as plain. I have these nice nature background, and I will put it in the background so that we can use it in order we can play around with the focal length or depth of field of the camera, and we can make it blurry as the image reference that we have. For depth of field, open up Blender depth of field and play around with it until you achieve a good result that you're happy with. And finally, once everything is good, we can go to the render tab and render that out. It was all. Thank you very much for following me, and hope you learned something out of this tutorial. I created some paid courses which will go in depth with textures and higher quality render output. If you like, you can check the links that I put in the description. Thank you very much, and see you in the next tutorial.